Hello, everyone. My name is Mr. Stone, and today we're going to talk about the 9/11 terrorist attacks, a frontline airline worker's perspective. This is the fall of 2020, and the past couple of days I've been talking with my students about the 9/11 terrorist attacks, which took place 19 years ago. So this is what we've been talking about. So this is the front page of the Los Angeles Times, September 12th, Wednesday, 2001. Terrorist attack, New York, Pentagon. Thousands dead, injured as hijacked U.S. airliners ram targets. World Trade Centers are brought down. So every time I see this article or I hear about anything that's related to 9/11, it takes me back to that time. So I'm going to give you a walk in my shoes, so to speak. For me, I lived it. I lived it in my way. For a lot of you, this is history. You're learning about history. So we talked about the Pentagon as one of the places that was attacked by the terrorist who hijacked the airliners and then crashed them into buildings. This is one of the buildings that they crashed into. It is the five-sided military headquarters for the United States military called the Pentagon. It is located in Washington, D.C. This picture was taken a few days before the 9/11 terrorist attacks. As you can see, there's five sides. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. This is where the Army, Air Force, Marines, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, and Coast Guard are located. The generals and admirals that are in charge of these branches, this is where those decisions are being made. All right. So next is the World Trade Center, also known as the Twin Towers. This is a picture obviously taken before September 11, 2001. These World Trade Centers, they went up in, I believe, 1960s. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about that piece of information in just a few minutes. Got a prompt later in this slide that's going to help me with that. If I'm not mistaken, this is the Empire State Building, which I think became the tallest building in the New York area because of these two buildings being crashed. These buildings are huge. A 747, I think there were 787 full-size commercial aircraft that would hold hundreds of people that flew, across country. These were the airplanes that were hijacked and then crashed into the buildings. Those airplanes are huge, but when you compare it to these two buildings here, these airplanes look very small. So here we are. Here's the caption. So this is a picture from the September 12th, 2001 Los Angeles Times front page, which, by the way, this newspaper is a part of my personal archives. Here is that airplane, which from wing to wing doesn't even fit, go outside of the exterior of this building right here. Here's the caption down here. I blew it up, made it bigger, easier to read. United Flight 175 heads for the South Tower of the World Trade Center in Manhattan, then explodes on impact while North Tower burns from an assault about 20 minutes earlier. So over here we have North Tower. It was the first building to be attacked. So everybody was calling me on the West Coast when I was living in California at the time, and they were telling me about a plane hitting the World Trade Center. I thought it was just like a small, Cessna or something along those lines. So this is the plane, but here is the explosion. Here's the impact. You can see it's a screenshot. debris falling from the sky, falling from the building. Here is the explosion right there. Okay, next. So these were the articles that we saw on September 12th, 2001. So you may hear a lot now called the post 9/11 world. This was the first day of the post 9/11 world. So on September 12th, 2001, Los Angeles Times, a chilling voice from the sky. Our plane is being hijacked. People were making these very chilling phone calls to family and loved ones. They were leaving these messages on answer machines to phones in people's houses, to voicemail to cell phones and this sort of thing. It just is a very crazy time those days. All right, another article. See if we can move this. And in New York, a day of fire and fear. Once again, another article, the first day of the post 9/11 world. Fire, we just saw a picture of that, the fear. We're going to talk more about that. So, did you know? Let's get this guy over here. Hey, how we doing? All right. Did you know that Mr. Stone worked in the airline industry as a college student when 9/11 took place? So 19 years ago, I was in the airline industry for about 2.5 to 3 years, and I was in my sixth semester of college at the university. I had got my honorable discharge from the Navy in 1997. Took the summer to get situated. The fall of '97, I started college in a community college in San Diego. Transferred to California State University, Dominguez Hills in the spring of 2000, and was a full-time student all of 2000 and all of 2001. This was my sixth semester, I think summers included, of courses in the Los Angeles area. So yes, I was in the airline industry, working at the Los Angeles International Airport. So that's me. That's me in my airline uniform. This tie was one of the ties that was what airline employees wore at Qantas Airways. I'm holding a model airplane. This is the Qantas model airplane. I still have these little airplanes in my collection. This is me in front of my apartment. I believe sometime either in 2000 or 2001, getting ready to head out to work. That was 19 years ago, or 20. All right, so working in the airline industry. This picture here is a picture of a Qantas Airways airplane. It's white with the red tail and the kangaroo on the back. It is a 747. I know this because it has a bubble here at the top. And you see the two sets of windows. So this is the upper deck of business class. Here's the lower deck of business class, and then up here is the first class cabins, and then back here would be the economy seats. So I was a college student. Qantas Airways. So students, when you see the word Qantas, you may think it's not spelled correctly because it doesn't follow the rule of a Q and then followed by a U. However, this is an acronym. So an acronym is the first letter of a series of words that make up a title. So we have Queensland and Northern Territories Aerial Service. That was the airline of Australia, Qantas Airways. In the days that I was at Qantas Airways at the Los Angeles International Airport, it was nonstop flights from Los Angeles to Sydney, Australia, I think there was like 3 flights from Los Angeles to Sydney on a daily basis back in those days. Melbourne, Australia, Auckland, New Zealand, from Los Angeles to Auckland, and it then would continue on to Brisbane, and then Nadi, Fiji. And that was actually not with Qantas, but Qantas's partner, Air Pacific. Today it's known as Air Fiji, but back in those days it was Air Pacific. This 2001, this was on the back end of the 2000 Sydney Olympics, which there was a lot of travel down to Australia for the Olympics. Qantas was the official carrier for NBC. We did have other airlines that flew from that area to the United States, United being one of them, the Air New Zealand being another one, but the Qantas was the one that got the business for NBC, which was the TV station that broadcasted the 2000 Olympics from Sydney, Australia. All right, what else we got here? So yes, I was attending classes at California State University, Dominguez Hills. That's located in Carson, California. It's currently the home of the LA Galaxy Major League Soccer team. They were not there on the campus at that time. However, we on our campus we did have the 1984 Olympic bicycle track, and it's a stone's throw from Torrance, Redondo Beach, Palos Verdes, the South Bay of Los Angeles. Okay, so one of the things that a lot of people who are around my age, they say to themselves, where were you at the day before 9/11? So September 10th, 2001, I was at the Los Angeles International Airport, and I was actually making eye contact and working with this person on the screen here, Keanu Reeves. Keanu Reeves was traveling to the Sydney area to do some filming for one of the Matrix movies. So he was originating in Los Angeles and heading to Sydney. He was also on the same airplane with Britney Spears, pop singer. She was traveling to Sydney, Australia to do some work for her job. So the day before 9/11, it was just another day. It was common in those days to see famous people fly in and out of Los Angeles. Keanu Reeves was one of them, and it was a big deal. He was super tall. I didn't check him in. I didn't really have anything to do with him. We did a lot of the check-in for him ahead of time because we had his passport information ahead of time. Canadian passport holder, born in Beirut. Cool stuff that we working in the airline industry, you got to know about. So they were flying out on the midnight flight. This flight was called the QF-108. QF was the 2-letter code for Qantas, so American was AA, Delta was DL, Air New Zealand was NZ, United Airways Airlines is UA, this sort of thing. So QF-108, we refer to this affectionately as the QF-10 late because that flight never got to Los Angeles on time. That flight originated in JFK, New York, and it 9 times out of 10 it was coming into Los Angeles late, and that meant that this midnight flight was like a 2 o'clock in the morning, 3 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, it was rough, but nevertheless, that's what they did, and it was late leaving that day. So the following day, September 11th, I just wanted to sleep in. All right, so we're going to talk about that a little bit. September 11th, 2001 in California. So students, I've been telling you every time that I've been presenting this to you guys, you know, here in Ohio, East Coast, Ohio, New York, we're in the same time zone. However, California, they're 3 hours behind us. So when all this terrorist attack activity was taking place in the morning of September 11th, it was super early morning in California, and I had already gotten off work late. I'd already gotten home late. I just wanted to sleep in. I wanted to be as fresh as possible for my college classes, which the first class was going to be at 11 o'clock. Picture of a cell phone. This is what the cell phones looked back in those days. And on September 11th, 2001, this phone wouldn't stop ringing. And if it wasn't this phone ringing, it was the landline that we had, which when I moved from California, that was the last time I ever had a landline. But that was the days when people had landlines. But that was the cell phone that I had. Kind of funny to look at it now, but yeah, the phones nonstop ringing. Family, friends, loved ones, basically wanting to tell me what's going on. Finally, got a hold of my dad. Got a hold of me, and basically warned me not to go to the airport. The country was under attack, and I'm thinking, what are you talking about? I just checked in, Keanu Reeves on a flight for him to go to Sydney. He's making his one of his Matrix movies. And you're telling me that the country's under attack. I don't, it didn't register. It was not something that you were going to wake up to that morning and expect to hear. So I did check with my employer, and as I was checking with my employer and turning on my TV, just got off the phone with my dad. I'm seeing that scene of that airplane, the second airplane, basically flying in and going straight up into that second tower, which was, by then it was, it already happened. The TV channels, they were showing that on constant replay. You won't see that today. That picture that I showed you on the front page of the Los Angeles Times, you probably won't see that anywhere today. Maybe, but it's one of those graphic scenes that had to be kind of censored to a degree because of the trauma and the heartache that it brought to a lot of people. We're going to talk a little bit more about that in a few minutes. All right, so 5 flights flew daily between Australia. 3 of them went to Sydney. 1 of them went to Melbourne. The other one went to New Zealand, Auckland, New Zealand. And then there was, from time to time, about 2 or 3 times a week, we had that Air Pacific flight that went to Fiji. So basically, we were expected to send out 5 flights that night. I usually worked the night shift, went to school in the daytime. So 5 flights flew daily between the United States and Australia for Qantas. There were, Air New Zealand and United. They were the competitors, and they also had their flights going back and forth from Australia. But only 3 made it to Los Angeles on September 11th. The last 2, one of the last 2 got diverted to Hawaii. It couldn't go back to Australia, but by the time that it got close enough for an arrival in the United States, the airspace in the United States had been shut down. All planes had been grounded. These planes were flying halfway around the world. They didn't have enough gas to turn around and go back, but they did have enough gas to make it to Hawaii. That was one of them. The second one basically was close enough to Australia when all this was going down that they were diverted and sent back to back to Australia. So we only have 3 aircraft in Los Angeles that made it on September 11th. All right, the moments after learning about the terrorist attacks. So we have a picture here of the LAX International Airport. This picture was taken on September 12th, 2001. As you can see, this is the runway. There's nothing going on there. These are all like catering vehicles or maintenance vehicles and this sort of thing. And these vehicles are not doing anything. This is a surface street where there's a red car and a white vehicle passing by. But this is one of the busiest airports in the United States, and this airport was basically rounded to a halt. And so this was something that the evening after 9/11 happened in the morning. That evening I was at home, which was rare because I was always out at the airport working. Couldn't go to work. My livelihood was put on hold for a few days. So my wife and I, we did drive by the airport, and it was just very eerie looking at the airport and seeing it pitch black, dark, and no activity or anything. So after I got situated, got my dad waking me up with the phone call and checking in with my employer and the news and the shock and everything that's going on and the disbelief, and it's almost like watching like a Hollywood movie. I remember getting online, and I remember it was the dial-up internet, AOL. That was a big deal back in those days, and I remember chatting with coworkers, and that was one of the big things that AOL did back in those days is you could chat, instant message, and we just couldn't believe what was going on. We kind of talking about, just a few hours ago we were dealing with Britney Spears and Keanu Reeves, and now all this stuff about 9/11, Al Qaeda network, and all this stuff. I don't think the Taliban was prevalent at that very moment, but Al Qaeda, we started to learn about Al Qaeda and Osama bin Laden and this sort of thing. So eventually I get in my car, Pacific Coast Highway. I could see the Pacific Coast Highway from my apartment. I got in my car. It was a 2001 Nissan Sentra 5-speed. The very first time ever in my life I ever had a new car. Yeah, I had bills to pay, and at that point, I'm like, I don't even know how I'm going to pay my bills because the airport's closed. So I get in my car, drive up the Pacific Coast Highway. I remember going to a Starbucks in Redondo Beach. It was at the corner of right across the street from Redondo Union High School, and always went there for coffee. Tried to go there and get some coffee on that particular day. The coffee shop was closed. There was a sign on the window that said 9/11 terrorist attacks, we're closed, hope you understand. And it was like that throughout every little strip mall, and there was a ton of them in the South Bay, up and down the Pacific Coast Highway, and everything was closed. I was like, what? This is just nuts. So just drove up the Pacific Coast Highway and listened to 97.1, the FM talk channel. In the mornings, they had Howard Stern. He was super huge back in those days. This was the days when he was actually on regular radio. So he was on in the mornings because the Howard Stern show was from New York. The time difference between New York and Los Angeles, it would be a tape delay unless you were up at 3 o'clock in the morning. Then in Los Angeles, then you could hear him live. In the afternoon, which was around the time that I got in my car and started driving, go off and do stuff on 9/11. Tom Likas, the afternoon drive person, he was a shock jock, super hilarious, super engaging, funny. I used to love. I used to hate driving in the LA traffic, but I used to love listening to Tom Likas. So kind of escaped from the traffic and just listened to him. Shock jock. He was real big in those days, talking about Likas 101. He was real big about all this sort of stuff, and so the reason why I'm telling you all this, he's super funny. That's his persona on the radio. Hilarious, humorous, shocking. He's a shock jock. But on September 11th, that afternoon, it was as if I was listening to a different person. He talked about growing up in New York and seeing the World Trade Centers being built, and how much of a huge inconvenience that was to the average everyday person in New York, because it was such a massive undertaking at the time. So he basically talked about how he saw the World Trade Centers go up, and then he had the misfortune of seeing the World Trade Centers come down, just like everybody else. Because by that time, the World Trade Center, they had collapsed due to the airplane crashes. So basically came back home, and any type of regular TV programming that may have been on in 2001. Everybody Loves Raymond. I don't even know if Seinfeld was still on, but those type of TV shows, Friends, I think may have still been around. It's 19 years ago, so it's kind of hard to remember. But long story short, all regular TV programming was canceled, and every single channel was nothing but 24-hour news. Even if they didn't have a news department, they would basically show CNN or Fox News or something along those lines. I had didn't have cable TV. I had antenna, rabbit ear antenna TV. So in Los Angeles, that meant I had a good 10, maybe a dozen channels, English speaking and Spanish speaking. But I had those were the channels that I had, rabbit ear TV, and all of them were news. So just to give you an idea of the gravity of what was going on. Okay, so a return to work, return to the Los Angeles International Airport. That took place on Friday, September 14th, 2001. So today it's Monday, September 14th, 2020, 19 years ago. But I remember this day as if it were yesterday, because it was such a traumatic event. And I'd served in the 2 tours to the Persian Gulf in the United States Navy. So I'd seen and experienced things, but this was something right up there with those trips to the Persian Gulf. Here we go. So we had 1,200 scared, angry, and hostile passengers. Hostile to the sense that they were very disagreeable because we didn't really know anything, and they were just scared and they just wanted to go home. So maybe they weren't the most rational, thinking people at that time, which was totally understandable. And if the truth were to be known, we were just as scared as they were, But that was the situation that we had. We only had 3 airplanes that made it into Los Angeles on September 11th, so we were very limited in space. We had all those, we had September 11th flights that were canceled, September 12th, September 13th, September 14th. So we had 4 days of flights, and we had all these people. They're like, I got a ticket. I want to get out of here. I want to get out of here. I remember the sales team coming over from the nearby office. I think they were located in El Segundo, and they came over and they meant well, but in truth, they were kind of in the way. But it was a crazy time. They did help out because they would help out in the sense that they could go in and make reservations for people, get them out, discounts, whatever. And that left the operations stuff to us. So in a way that it helped, but it also they were kind of like in the way. But I'm sure that if we went over to their office, they would have felt the same way that we were in their way. But anyway, 3 flights to Australia. So these are 747 jumbo jets. That's that picture that I showed you on the previous slide. That those can hold 358 passengers based on the seating configurations of the Qantas airplane. So I'm going to try to remember the configuration. It's 14 first class, 79 business class, and then that meant 265 were in coach. And I don't know, that's approximately the numbers. When I did these calculations, I think I checked it to verify, but that was a breakdown of passengers. We had first class passengers who had a $10,000 ticket. That was the cost of a first class ticket from Sydney to Los Angeles on Qantas. $10,000. That's amazing. But they basically were saying, I don't care. I want to get out of here. I will fly in coach, which was $1,000 ticket back in those days. So that was the type of decision making that people were making. They said, I just want to get on a seat, get in a seat on a plane and get out of here. And who could blame them? So only 10, based off of the calculations, three times 358. We only had 1,074 passengers that left on 9/11. On September 14th, 3 days after 9/11. Long story short, I didn't get home until 5 a.m. That was nuts. My wife told me that when I got home, I finally fell into a deep sleep, and somewhere in 8, 9, 10 o'clock in the morning, I was still sleeping, and she came by the room and she said that I was kind of in the bed, kind of doing one of these, shaking, jerking job, and I basically was having, nightmares about this event that we just had went through at the airport. It was nuts. All right, so changes at the airport and in life. So we have an American flag. American flag was one of the first things that we would see that went on people's cars. I had one. I probably had two. Truth to be known, but we Americans, we became tremendously patriotic right after 9/11, and that was basically across the board for the first 6 months after 9/11. We would put these flags on our windows. We would take flags and we'd tape it to our radio antennas on our cars. So changes were instant. So post 9/11 world, that newspaper article, September 12th, 2001, that's when these changes went into effect. It was kind of amazing. You watch the news that night on September 11th. The next thing you know, you're hearing effective immediately. Nobody can go up to the gate past the check-in counter unless they have a boarding ticket. Before if I flew somewhere, my mom, dad, and sister, they could come all the way to the gate to give me a farewell hug. Post 9/11, only that person could go, and they had to take off their shoes, take off their belt, do all this other stuff. So changes were instant. One of the first changes we saw, can't necessarily say I saw it I did. September 14th, 2001, FBI agents were coming into the office with lists of people's names, and basically they wanted us to check those lists to make sure that there was nobody on our flights that had those names. National Guard, that probably was a couple weeks after 9/11, but I do recall police cars being parked under the bridges and tunnels that went around the LAX airport. That was basically September 14th when we finally go back to work. So immediately, the airline industry shifted away from the customer service to security. Like I told you, that first class passenger that was flying from the United States to Australia is paying $10,000. He's paying that for customer service, and essentially that all just shifted over to security. And at first, nobody really minded. They would rather have the security. So I said earlier, all the way to the gate. That was before 9/11. After 9/11, only that person that was flying could go to the gate after they went through, all the screening and all the checks and taking off the shoes and taking off the belts and all that good stuff. Before 9/11, you could drive from Ohio to Canada. go to Niagara Falls on the Canadian side, go up into Canada if you wanted to, and you could do that all with your driver's license. After 9/11, you had to have a passport. That was a completely foreign concept for a lot of people, and a lot of people would have to go up to Canada and pull out their little Ohio driver's license and be told to turn around and come right back, because in the post 9/11 world, you got to have your passport. So imagine that you could travel between the United States and Canada without a passport before 9/11. All right, yeah, like I said earlier, many Americans became patriotic. So the first 6 months after 9/11, everywhere you went, you saw people with these American flags attached to their windows. Yeah, living in a post 9/11 world. That became a phrase that we heard pretty much September 12th, 2001. Post 9/11 world. And we hear that from time to time today. We hear that when we're talking about air travel. We hear that when we're talking about international students and the way that American universities manage them. That was, we had 19 hijackers. They were all on F1 student visas. So clearly that was something that had to be addressed. So we hear about the post 9/11 world. 19 years later, not as much as we did before. A lot of it has to do with the coronavirus, but be as it may, started to hear a lot about the post 9/11 world. All right, so something that a lot of people probably have forgotten about or don't know about, but how the 9/11 terrorist attacks affected pop culture. There were songs on the radio that were basically banned. So, I did it again. There's a link, right? Next click. That is going to the banned songs. So, we have the banned song. Sorry. The banned songs, we had a list of songs, and it can be found here. And those banned songs basically were songs that triggered negative feelings in people. The Eagles song, or was it Don Henley, New York Minute? That was a song that couldn't be played on the radio. I brought up my favorite group, Van Halen. Their song Jump was banned because it was basically prohibited to play Jump because it reminded people of those people who were trapped in the buildings and who made that fateful decision to jump out of the top of the World Trade Center because it was either that or get burnt to death.